Follow along, Catholic pilgrims, as we follow French doctor of the Church, St. Francis de Sales, through his book, Introduction to the Devout Life. Tune in as we read through this practical guide for living out the Catholic faith well. Fellow pilgrims, welcome back. Today we hit 70 episodes for this season, which is amazing. I have felt that this season is flying by, and before we know it, we will be starting season 5. 5 seasons, that's crazy. I do know what I'm reading for next year, but I'm not ready to disclose it yet, so I'll just let your curiosity drive you nuts. The other day I saw a video of a new restaurant in, I think, Japan, could be Korea, but anyway, the point of the restaurant was to appeal to introverts. Patrons would come in, seat themselves in like a telephone booth styled box, order food on a screen, and then a train thing delivers the food. You are closed off from the other people who are there dining. And this was praised as a great restaurant for introverts, but no, this is weird. This is called being socially awkward and having a disdain for fellow humans, and we should not encourage it. Full-up solitude forevermore is not good. Then I listened to another video where people were dogging on other people who just sit in silence on airplanes. They ask, how can they do it? What kind of weirdo just sits there and doesn't watch a movie, play on their phone, or listen to music? In a world filled with constant noise, drama, entertainment, and constant interaction, usually over devices, it can get to the point where we don't know how to be in silence. And this isn't good either. And we shouldn't encourage constant distractions. What is better is to cultivate a healthy life that is balanced by society and silence. And that's what St. Francis is going to talk about today. So let's open our books to chapter 24 of the third part. Chapter 24, Society and Solitude. To seek society and to shun it are alike blamable extremes for those who are living in the world, and it is to such that I am speaking. By shunning it, we indicate disdain and contempt for our neighbor, and by seeking it, we imply idleness and inactivity. We should love our neighbor as ourselves, and it is not a proof of love to shun him. Whilst as a sign that we love ourselves, we should be content with our own society, that is to be alone. First think of thyself, and then of others, says St. Bernard. If then you are not called upon to receive or enter society, remain by yourself and hold converse with your own heart. But if you are rightly called on to join in society, then go, as in God's sight, and mix with a free and loving heart amongst your fellows. That is bad society, which has a bad object in view, or which is composed of evil livers. From indiscreet or profligate persons turn away, as the bee turns from all that is foul and impure. For just as the society of one that has been bitten by a mad dog is dangerous, especially to children and weak people, so is that of ill-regulated and profligate men, especially to those whose piety is as yet tender and weak. Some kinds of society have no end except recreation from more serious occupation, and though we should not exceed in such, still we may lawfully bestow our leisure therein. Another kind we owe to courtesy, such as mutual visits and meeting together out of respect to our neighbors. And with regard to these, we should neither be punctilious in their observance, nor discourteous in their neglect, but unobtrusively fulfill our part, so as at once to avoid incivility and distraction. And lastly, as to society of virtuous and pious persons, the oftener you seek such, the better. The vine that is planted amidst olive trees bears the richest fruit, and the soul that is constantly associated with holy people must imbibe their good qualities. Drones cannot make honey, but the bees make them work. It is a great advantage to associate with the truly devout. At all times, let simplicity, candor, gentleness, and modesty prevail in your conversation. There are some persons who weary everyone by the affectation of all their looks and actions, and as all the world would be annoyed by a man who would never walk without counting his steps or speak without singing, so society is extremely troubled by those whose deportment is always artificial and all their proceedings measured. For there is always a certain degree of presumption in such people. As a general rule, we should preserve a quiet cheerfulness of manner. St. Romuald and St. Anthony have been much praised because throughout all their austerities, their manner and countenance were always cheerful, pleasing, and courteous. Rejoice with them that rejoice. And again, I would say with the apostle, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your modesty be known to all men. In order to rejoice in the Lord, the cause of your joy must not only be lawful but good. For there are some lawful things which yet are not fitting, and that your moderation may be known, avoid presumption, which is always reprehensible. Nothing can be more contemptible than practical jokes or jests which annoy and give pain to others. I have before shown you how you may retire into solitude within yourself, even in the largest society. And besides this, you should seek some solitary place. Not in the desert like St. Mary of Egypt, St. Paul, St. Anthony, Arsenius, and the other solitary fathers, but retiring into your own room or your garden or wherever you can. There gather together your mind and heart and refresh your soul with pious meditation and holy thoughts, or by sacred study imitating the Bishop of Nazianzen, who, speaking of himself, says, I was walking with myself at sunset by the seashore, for thus I am accustomed to seek relaxation and relief from my ordinary cares. And then he goes on to narrate his pious reflections, which I repeated to you before. And St. Augustine records of St. Ambrose that, entering into his apartment, for the entrance was open to all, he found him reading, and having waited some time for fear of disturbing him, he went away in silence, thinking that the brief space which the holy pastor could devote to refreshing and invigorating his mind amidst the many cares and occupations ought not to be intruded on. One of my pet peeves is the love affair our culture has with labeling ourselves either an extrovert or an introvert. People latch on to these labels and refuse to ever step outside of the comfort zone that their label allows for. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people that are more introverted, and I'm not saying that there aren't people that are more extroverted. I tend to be more extroverted. It's just that people cling to these labels, and introverts tend to use their label as an excuse to never leave the house and engage in society, and extroverts tend to use their label as an excuse to never take time to be in silence and reflect and think. Introverts pride themselves on the fact that they hate social settings and being around people. That's not being an introvert. That's being weird and unhealthy. It's not good to hate being around people. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to enjoy going to the club or attending every social function or enjoy small talk. But it does mean that holding yourself up in your house to stare at your phone and play video games ad nauseum is not healthy. St. Francis says, quote, by shunning society, we indicate disdain and contempt for our neighbor, and by seeking it, we imply idleness and inactivity. We should love our neighbor as ourselves, and it is not a proof of love to shun him, unquote. Extroverts pride themselves on the fact that they are never alone and that they need to be doing something at all times. They can't have silence, can't have alone time, or they fidget and end up going crazy because they need constant stimulation. This isn't healthy either. The body, mind, and soul need breaks, and they need to just be. You simply cannot reflect on or process your life if you are just moving from one fun thing to the next and in need of constant human interaction. St. Francis says, quote, as a sign that we love ourselves, we should be content with our own society. That is, to be alone, unquote. Later he goes on, quote, you should seek some solitary place, not in the desert like St. Mary of Egypt, St. Paul, St. Anthony, Arsenius, and the other solitary fathers, but retiring into your own room or your garden or wherever you can There, gather together your mind and heart and refresh your soul with pious meditation and holy thoughts. Unquote. We don't want to be extreme. Quote, to seek society and to shun it are alike blamable extremes for those who are living in the world. Unquote. Humans are not solitary creatures. We are not tigers or polar bears. We are meant to be in community, and we cannot love our neighbors if we refuse community. We also require periods of refreshment and reflection. No other creature on earth needs to reflect and allow God the chance to speak to their souls. So, as humans, we need time away from the world. You will tend towards one or the other, but don't be extreme in either one. A healthy balance is best. That will be it for today, Catholic Pilgrims. Next up, we will be hearing how to dress with dignity. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.